You're going to be shocked to find out that the proposed tax plan under Donald Trump is going to personally benefit Donald Trump and his family in a number of different ways. We're going to try to break down some of the biggest ones here. Now, first of all, you have the estate tax, or what they like to call the death tax, because they want to fool you into thinking it's something that might possibly affect you and not just the American aristocracy, which it will affect. And so as of right now, with the estate tax being canceled, individuals worth at least $5.45 million will owe estate taxes after their deaths. So any money above that amount is taxed at 40%, which, by the way, is only slightly higher, 1% more than the top marginal tax bracket. President Donald Trump claims to be worth $10 billion, which implies that there would be quite a bit of money which would be taken away if you had the estate tax. Now, if he can get rid of it, then theoretically, if you trust him on his net worth, Ivanka and Eric and Donald Jr. are going to save billions of dollars in taxes off of that. Yeah, so that's convenient.
We talk about how he's increasing the rates at Mar-a-Lago and calling it the Winter White House, to having the State Department do press releases for it. Ivanka's trying to sell more shoes or whatever she is, and they're trying to get more money for their hotels and stuff. Their personal enrichment, etc. That's peanuts compared to if they get rid of the estate tax. Ivanka, Jared Kushner, the other knucklehead sons, etc., are going to save, if you believe Donald Trump, $4 billion. How's that for personal enrichment? Gee, I wonder why he ran for president.
And bear in mind, as we pointed out when he was nominating people to be on his cabinet, it's the wealthiest cabinet in American history. So all the people that he sits in those rooms with all day long are they're very likely to be affected by not just the estate tax, but some of the others we're going to break down. I apologize that I'm rushing. I wish that we had the whole hour to break this down because it's so important. But let's move to the alternative minimum tax. So as we mentioned earlier, it's a tax set up so that if you are able, with your high-priced accountants, to get rid of your tax burden, you still have to pay something. It's an alternative to the tax that you legally should be paying otherwise. So he wants to get rid of that too. So how would that affect Donald Trump? We don't know for sure because, breaking precedent of history, he's not going to release his taxes, but we have some idea. According to his 2005 returns, it indicated that he earned $153 million that year. Without the alternative minimum tax, he would have paid just $7 million in taxes, a rate of less than 5%. But thankfully, the AMT was there, and so he had to pay an additional $31 million, raising his tax rate to about 25%, which is still far, far lower than what it should have been. But that is a perfect case study of how he would have benefited and will benefit when he gets rid of the AMT under his plan right now.
He makes it sound like, oh yeah, this is for jobs. What are you talking about? No, again, tens of millions of dollars directly in Donald Trump's pocket. So nice little side effect of running for president is, I mean, they get the power, but then it turns out North Korea is more complicated than he realized. No one knew. Healthcare is more complicated than he realized. No one knew. He didn't want any part of that job. Mnuchin, this Treasury Secretary, in releasing this, told the press, well, this is one issue that Donald Trump was, quote, very involved in. Of course. Oh, North Korean history, pain in the ass. What do I care if a bunch of South Koreans die when we launch the bombs there, right? Oh, wait a minute. Alternative minimum tax that I've been paying this whole time. Get rid of it. So my taxes will go down to less than 5% in a year like 2005. Of course he loves that. Look, the estate tax, at that point, Donald Trump is dead. Now, his kids care a lot about it, right? And I'm sure he wants to pass on more money to his kids, so he cares about it, and it's a bigger amount. But this affects Donald Trump today, immediately. Exactly. But the next one affects him even more.
Yeah, the corporate thing. Well, yeah, and overall, just in terms of how this is the perfect topic for him, and how, wasn't it weird that his interests align so much with Republicans? I mean, there were the people who were saying, let Donald Trump become president because the Republicans aren't going to work with him. They hate him so much. That was ridiculous in general. But okay, there's a couple issues that they seem to disagree with him on. They could pass this today if they wanted to. How could you have thought that the Republicans would go against him on his insane tax policy? The idea that it was safer to have Donald Trump in office, that was laughable then. We're the laughing stocks right now as they prepare to pass this tax plan. But let's move on to the next thing, because that corporate tax rate that we were talking about earlier, taking it from 35% down to 15%, interestingly, does not just affect the sorts of massive corporations you think of when you think of, Exxon and Walmart and things like that. There's other sorts of corporations called pass-through corporations. Now, that basically is where you have an individual paying an individual income rate tax as the head of a corporation. They don't pay corporate taxes, they pay individual taxes. Interestingly, Donald Trump's organization is a collection of those pass-through corporations. And under his new plan, he would be able to pay that new lower 15%, not just for his income, but for all of the income of all of those pass-through corporations, which means that he would not be paying that new, the higher tax bracket of, what is it, 30%, I think they said? He'd be paying 15% on every dollar that he makes, every dollar Ivanka makes, every dollar Jared and all of them make.
So this is, does it apply to some small businesses? Yes. Is there anything wrong with a pass-through corporation? No. But we should have a reasonable tax rate for pass-through corporations. If you say, even if it's a small business, but there's a really successful local guy who does real estate, who's a dentist, I don't know, I don't care, right? Why does he get to pay 15% and people who make a lot less than him are gonna pay a lot more? That doesn't make any sense. So, and boy, again, what a lucky break for Trump. It turns out all the Trump organizations are pass-through businesses. So that the higher rates are totally and utterly irrelevant to him. This just cuts his taxes down to 15%. That's it.
It is entirely possible that in the very near future, there was examples of this in the past, that maids at a Trump hotel could be paying a higher rate on their taxes than the guy who owns the entire corporation that owns their hotel.
Of course it will, of course. And Trump's gonna think, well, I'm like a really smart person. I tricked you into voting for me, and now you schmucks are stuck with the bill. Well, I pay almost nothing, idiots. Oh, you thought I was gonna make America great again? I made my pocketbook great again.
Yeah, and by the way, so they're saying in the background of all of this, we're trying to avoid the loopholes and people avoiding taxes, make it simpler, stop the fraud. Well, we've had experiments in this particular area. Back in 2012, Kansas passed a tax reduction package that we talked about a lot on the show that included exempting pass-through businesses from state taxes. That ended up incentivizing residents to recharacterize their income as pass-through and not regular salary in order to take advantage of the change. More than 1/3 of a million people filed their taxes that way the year after the change, costing hundreds of millions of dollars. Eventually, by 2014, costing almost $500 million. And it's one of the reasons that Kansas is in the terrible situation financially that it's in right now, is because of insane moves like this that they chose to pursue.
So that's part of the reason why the top rate for the income tax, they're bringing down from 39.6 to 35. That's the last part that helps Trump. But in reality, that actually doesn't matter. That's why they didn't bring it down that much. Trump's like, it doesn't affect me at all. I'm gonna pay 15% because of this pass-through stuff. It's a giant robbery. They're gonna rob you. See, it reminds me of the beginning of Pulp Fiction. This is a robbery, okay? Everybody be cool. And Trump is the top bandit. And John's right, almost everyone in his cabinet will benefit from every one of these provisions. Collectively, they will save billions of dollars. On the pass-through tax alone, tens of millions of dollars at a minimum. Even if Trump isn't anywhere as rich as he says he is, he still will save tens of millions of dollars a year. That could have gone towards your kids' education. It could have gone towards housing, hospitals, schools, bridges, roads. It could have gone for health care, could have gone for saving your life, but it's just gonna go into Trump and Mnuchin's and Gary Cohn's pockets, and they're gonna laugh and laugh at you. We got the poorest people in the country. By the way, people with less education voted for Trump more than people with higher education, and the people with less education make less money. We got the people that makes the least amount of money in the country to vote for the richest people to get even richer. Idiots! Ha ha, we robbed you. That's exactly what they're saying today as they celebrate this tax package. So if you're waiting for your tax cuts, keep on waiting. They ain't coming, man. They're gonna take trillions of dollars from this, from the government, and they're gonna put it right into their pocket. And once they do, for every year they took those trillions of dollars, you never get it back.
Yeah.
So even if someone great comes into office later and they want to do things like, hey, let's give everybody a chance at the American dream. Your kids could go to college for free, and that way you could be rich too. Isn't that wonderful? They're gonna say, sorry.
Or Medicare for all.
Sorry, we ran out of money. because we already gave away trillions of dollars to the rich while Trump was in charge. This tax cut, disaster, one of the greatest American robberies you will ever see in your life, and personally benefits Trump to the tune of, at minimum, tens of millions of dollars a year. But if he's anywhere near right about his real wealth, then billions of dollars in his pocket. He's laughing all the way at the bank, and the guy he's laughing at, if you voted for him, is you. We're not the Young Turks, you're the Young Turks. You power this show. Together, we built something amazing. We've broken stories like the Donna Brazil story the mainstream media wouldn't break. We built the studio, we built this network. It's now #1, all thanks to you guys. Let's come build it even bigger and stronger. TYTnetwork.com/join.